I'm so excited. I got my bested Dr. Jay Greenstein here, and I am super excited about today's presentation. I can tell you with 13 years of experience, even though I don't have a practice, but he is a visionary who gives the best advice professionally of just about anybody I know. I certainly have benefited from his years of advice and also his book recommendations, which I believe are just legendary. That's why I have 3 bookshelves and a library wall of books that he's recommended over the years. So I'm so excited to have you here today, Dr. J. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to hear about your vision to execution for success.
Thank you, Christy. It is always great to be here. I always appreciate being invited to join the ChiroHealthUSA family, ChiroHealthUSA Nation, and just have a conversation around all things successful, all things compliance, all things, well, provider happiness, right? Because we as providers, we get to be happy also. And so if we can create more success in our lives in the way that we want to create success, we're just going to be happier. And so I appreciate being here. And of course, love you, love Ray, love the rest of the company. And thank you for the invite. So today, like you said, Christy, we're going to be talking about vision to execution to success. And this is really built on this foundational platform that I call the Chiropractic Entrepreneurial Framework. So when I'm speaking across the country and literally around the world, there are some consistent challenges that providers have. And they can wax and wane, but providers have these issues. Inconsistent new patient acquisition is a challenge. Poorly defined vision for the business is a challenge. Recurring process issues. Oh my God, I can't believe that process issue is happening over and over and over again. I thought we solved that last week, last month, last year. Poor patient retention. There's so much focus on new patient acquisition that I think many providers forget the fact that it costs about 9 times more to acquire a new patient than it does to keep one. So how about we retain our patients in order to get the best outcome possible for our patients and, of course, derive income for our practice. Unclear performance expectations for both the boss and the people on the team who work with the boss. That's always a challenge. Culture. How do we build the culture that we want, not just have the culture that we have? We want to be intentional about building culture. And probably one of the biggest issues that I think many of us are facing, and I'll be very honest and transparent, us included, is around staff retention. But how do we mitigate that? How do we minimize the impact of this labor shortage that we're dealing with, the great resignation, as people are calling it? How do we deal with that in a way that's maximally productive and minimally challenging for our businesses? And I'll be talking about strategies to do that. So the chiropractic entrepreneur, this is all about building a leadership growth mindset. It starts with you. Then it's about being really clear about your mission and your values. Then it's about right people, right seat. Then it's about making sure you've got strategic goals and also making sure that you're holding you and your team accountable to those goals. It's about managing process through something called Six Sigma, which I love talking about. And KPIs, key performance indicators, scorecard, metrics. How do we make sure that we're actually reaching the targets for the goals that we're setting? And then operational problem solving. How do we deal with these issues in ways in which they don't return? So that's going to be today's conversation. And feel free to put questions in the chat or comments. I can't see it, but we will definitely get to it at the end. You are going to be drinking from a fire hose today. Christy knows, like I love giving a lot of content. If you get 1 or 2 or even 3 things from this presentation today that you can take with you that will help improve your practice and improve your life, then we've had a win, people. We've had a win. But you're going to be getting a lot of content. So write down the most important things and then find ways to execute on those things so that you can improve your practice and your life. So part 1, it's all about a leadership growth mindset, and it really starts with you. Here's what we know about great leaders. Great leaders have self-awareness. So how do we build self-awareness? Well, we can use validated tools like the Myers-Briggs. Some of you who are on this webinar who know me might be surprised that I'm actually an INFJ, INTJ, but more INFJ leaning. Yes, I'm actually an introvert. I'm an outgoing introvert. But I know that's kind of my personality trait. Another really great way to develop self-awareness is the Johari window. This is where you can rely on peer feedback to give you information, to give you data, to give you feedback on like where your strengths are and where your areas of opportunity are as well. So here's the Johari window. It's a matrix, right? On the left side of the matrix is what's known to others and what's unknown to others. And on the top of the matrix is what's known to yourself and what's unknown to yourself. Well, clearly, what's known to you and known to others is your open self. What's known to you and not known to others is your hidden self. What's what's unknown to both of you is your unknown self. But the big opportunity, you guys, is the blind self. This is what you don't see, but other people see in you. So how do you gain feedback and learn about your blind self? Well, you do what's called a 360. You open up SurveyMonkey. Literally, you put 3 questions in. You say, the first question is, what are my areas of strength? What are my areas of opportunities / weaknesses? Because sometimes areas of opportunities people might not understand. What you're really trying to get to is like, what are my weaknesses? And then third, how can I support you better? And you send it out to your entire team for an anonymous survey feedback. You review the results, and then you sit down with your team individually and collectively, and you talk through the results that you get. Now, again, if we want to develop greater self-awareness, we can learn from validated tools like, Myers-Briggs, or there's Strength Finders, which I love, and there's other tools as well. But if we're doing it the right way, we're doing our validated assessments, but we're also getting peer feedback at the same time. I will share with you a story. Back in 2019, I did this with my team. And when they gave me the feedback, I literally cried. Like I cried like a baby because I felt so bad that they were having this experience with me, but I never would have known had they not given me the feedback. And it actually helped really change the way that I led, change the way that I communicated, change the way that I clarified expectations. And it made their experience so much better. And quite frankly, it made my experience so much better as well. So I highly recommend doing the Johari window with you and your team. A third way to develop like greater self-awareness, but also to develop greater levels of success is grit. Now, grit is the scientific definition of both passion and perseverance to achieve long-term goals. So Angela Duckworth, who is a PhD at the University of Pennsylvania, she actually just spoke at Parker Vegas, where both Christy and I were at. She was amazing. I'm a super fan, no doubt about it. But she built an assessment where you can identify what your levels of grit are. So if you go to angeladuckworth.com and you can click on a link that says grit scale, you can actually take this 10-question assessment. Now, what's really important, again, we talked about self-awareness. What's really important is that you're honest in your answers. Because if you're giving answers that you think you want to get a better score, don't do that. You're not doing yourself a really good service. You want to just get a baseline number. Whatever your number is your number, because we measure to improve, not to impress. 2 people could have the exact same number, and it could mean completely 2 different things to those individuals because they're living 2 different lives. They've got 2 different sets of fingerprints. They're 2 different human beings. So it doesn't really matter what your score is comparatively to everybody else. What matters is your score comparative to yourself. So you take the assessment, you have a level of self-awareness about your grittiness, and then you find ways to improve your grittiness. So how do we do that? Well, you have something in your life that you find enduringly fascinating. You're interested in something that you can actually pay a lot of attention to, provide a lot of energy for. You find something enduringly fascinating. So for me, it's chiropractic. Like I just find it enduringly fascinating, and I'm amazed at the social injustices that we face in our profession. And therefore, I am both passionate and I persevere in the work that I do, just like Christy does, on advocacy projects like the Future of Chiropractic Strategic Plan. That's what keeps me going, because I find chiropractic and the injustices that we face enduringly fascinating. 2, you view frustrations as the necessary part of the process. I was literally just having a one-on-one with one of my docs, and he was frustrated about something, and we kind of talked through it. And I'm one of those people that's like, I want to solve the problems, right? And I tend to just want to automatically jump in and solve a problem. But like I sat back and I listened, and he's like, I'm allowed to be frustrated. And you know what? He's absolutely right. We are allowed to be frustrated. We're humans. We have to be able to express that emotion. And we also have to understand that it's a necessary part of the process to get us to a better place, right? So we're going to get frustrated, but like, what is that place we need to get to as we work through those frustrations? Oops, sorry guys. 3, you find ways to make your work more meaningful. This is like a no-brainer in chiropractic. Like all the miracles that you guys are creating in your practices is pretty freaking meaningful. Like it's easy for us to find meaning in our work. We're not making widgets, we're actually saving lives. And so therefore, it's pretty easy to be gritty as a chiropractor. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, you actually believe that you can change and grow. You have what's called a growth mindset. Now, a growth mindset was developed by Carol Dweck at Stanford University. And when Angela presented at Parker, she talked about this intimate relationship, this revolving circle, this feedback loop, that in order to have grit, you've got to have a growth mindset. In order to have a growth mindset, you actually have to increase your grittiness. So again, like I have so much to share with you guys today, and I'm already probably oversharing with all the content that I'm giving you, but these are areas that you can dive into a bit more. Go get Angela's book, Grit. Go get Carol Dweck's book, A Growth Mindset, and learn from these experts around actually achieving the success that you're looking for and ultimately creating a happier, healthier life for yourselves. So at a high level, how do we build a growth mindset? One, doing exactly what you're doing today. There's probably 36,000 things that you could be doing right now other than listening to me, but you are investing in yourself. You're investing in learning. And so that is something that, I'm passionate about. I know that Christy's passionate about, and many of our close friends are passionate about. It's like we never stop learning. And when I consult with other chiros and we talk through some of the challenges that they're facing, I typically say that if there's a problem in your practice, it's either a people problem, it's a process problem, or it's a knowledge problem, and or any combination of those three. So the fact that we might have a problem, we've got the right people, we've got strong processes, we don't have defects in our processes, and yet we're still dealing with this issue, it's because we don't have enough knowledge, we don't have enough wisdom. And so then it's a matter of like, okay, well, how do we learn more? What are the resources that we need to go to? What books do we need to read? What videos do we need to watch? What mentors do we need to call? Never, ever, ever stop learning. Step two of building a growth mindset, you have to realize that hard work is the key. Vince Lombardi said that the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary, and that is so incredibly true. And Angela talked about this idea that effort plus talent equals skill. And effort plus skill equals achievement. And so we never stop working hard. We never stop building our skill. It takes 10,000 plus hours of deliberate practice, hard work to actually improve our levels so that we can get to achievement. But understand that if we want to be successful and have the success that we want, hard work is truly the key. And lastly, we want to, face our setbacks and challenges. Like we just have to turn these setbacks into success. And that's also kind of in line with, again, this feedback loop of the viewing frustrations as a necessary part of the process. We are humans. We live in a world that presents us with many, many challenges, sometimes even on a daily basis. And what we've got to be able to do in building this growth mindset and increasing our grittiness is just face those setbacks and challenges head on. Okay. Part two, mission and values. It is critically important if you are a business owner to be crystal clear on who you are, what you believe, and how you behave. Normally, if I'm in front of an audience, I'll be like, okay, with a show of hands, how many people in this room have a written mission statement that everybody in your company knows? And unfortunately, in our space, in our field, we don't have a lot of people that are raising their hands. This is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. A mission statement literally tells the world, including the people on your team, why the hell you exist. And if you can't be really clear about why you exist, how are you supposed to inspire the members of your team and inspire your patients and inspire your community to come and see you for world-class chiropractic care? If you do not have a written mission statement that is clear and that every single person on your team knows, you need to start there. You must be really clear about why you exist in the world. Again, why does your practice exist? If you can't answer that in a mission statement, that's the first thing you need to do after this webinar. Core values. This is all about who you are, what you believe, and how you behave. This is really important because when you bring people into your organization, you want people who want to help build your mission, help achieve your mission. And you also want people who want to actually behave in a way that align with your core values. Anybody can build a mission, but maybe they do it unethically, or maybe they do it inappropriately, or maybe they do it where they're trampling over others to achieve their mission. I don't want that. Maybe there's some people who are listening want that, but I don't want that. I want people to be inspired by our mission of inspiring and empowering a healthier, happier world, and doing it in a way that aligns with our core values, which I'll share with you right now. So this is what it looks like, guys. And let me tell you, like, I've been in business almost 30 years, and we've got 4 companies that we run, and it's been like some of the most challenging things that I've ever done, but also some of the most rewarding things that I've ever done. And when we build our mission statement and we build our core values, there were probably 10 iterations of this. Like, it took us a long time to get to this place, but I will tell you that for our clinics, this just worked out really, really well. And so if you want, feel free to take a picture. Please don't plagiarize, but feel free to use this as an example, as a goal to set for your team. I'm not going to read through all these because I don't have the time, but use this as a template that you can say to your team, like, this is what great looks like. It's clear, it's inspiring, it's really exemplary of the person who has actually written down these goals. And like, if anybody, and I know there's people on this webinar who know me, they'd be like, yeah, Jay's pretty passionate. Yeah, he's pretty freaking tenacious. Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is Jay, right? And so ultimately these core values and your mission statement they must align with the business owner, because you're the one setting that North Star metric of where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. So take a picture if that would be helpful. Lastly, when it comes to who you are, what you believe, and how you behave, you've got to have a defined brand. So branding is the art and science of influencing perception about a product, service, or organization. When people look at your brand, they look at your logo, they walk into your office, they see your shirt with your name on it, you're giving them a feeling. This is our clinic brand. It's Kaizo Health. Kaizo is the Japanese word for rebuild, reconstruct. And in the gaming world, it's known as 1, pushing the limits of human potential, and 2, a hack. And our tagline is rethink, rebuild, restart. We want the world, literally the world, to rethink healthcare. It is a travesty, an unbelievable travesty, the amount of guideline discordant care that's being practiced out there. Guideline discordant care, if you've not heard that term before, there are clinical practice guidelines that set standards for how care should be delivered. We have them in chiropractic. Check out clinicalcompass.org. And yet the world, and for me, where the frustration comes in is the medical community doesn't follow guidelines. They don't pay attention to guidelines. They give patients drugs first. That's not in alignment with the guidelines. I'm not talking about chiropractic guidelines. I'm talking about the guidelines on musculoskeletal care, the guidelines on spine care. So, hey, rethink healthcare. We want people to rethink healthcare so we can rebuild people's bodies so they can restart their lives. There is meaning behind this. When our team puts on this shirt, there's meaning behind it. It's not just a logo. It's like, yeah, this is what we do, man. This is why we do it. This is really important to achieving our mission of inspiring and empowering a healthier, happier world. So, and by the way, like that DNA piece, like who we are, like pushing the limits of human potential, like people come into our organization and they get pushed. They really do. And I know that they are better off for it in the long run. Some people make it in our company, some people don't. And that's okay. Some people want to be pushed to grow outside their comfort zone. Some people don't. They don't last as long. They may say that they do in the interview process. They may have given us great examples of how they've pushed their limits. But when it comes down to it, at least in our organization, maybe us pushing them a little bit harder, the power of one more step harder, sometimes, it's just not for them. And that's okay. No judgment. It's just a matter of fit, which we're going to get to when we talk about right people, right seat. So Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, Christy says that I've got a lot of good book recommendations, and I do. I'm happy to share those at the end if we have time. But in the book, Good to Great, chapter number 1 was level 5 leadership, and read about that because it very much ties to self-awareness and the things that we talked about for a leadership growth mindset. Chapter number 2 is first who, then what. It's about getting the right people in the right seat, doing the right work in the right way at the right time. That's what it's all about. And so how do you get the right people? Well, the first step is you must have a recruiting strategy. Again, I'm in front of audiences all the time and I'll say, okay, how many people in the room have a recruiting strategy? And like, it is crickets. crickets. And I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, this next slide is really going to help you because we know there's a staff shortage. If you don't have a strategy to overcome those challenges, how are you going to possibly recruit and get the right people? So you've got to have a recruiting strategy. So here we go. We use technology, surprise. We use technology in our practice in many areas. And in our recruiting, we have what's called an applicant tracking system called Chirology. Every single position in our practices, every single position in our other 3 companies are always being advertised. You heard me. Every position in our company is always being advertised because we want as many applicants and candidates coming through, whether we need them or not. We want as many applicants coming through our system at all times. Our jobs are open. And I've spoken and people were like, well, God, that must be terrible for your team. Like, don't they get worried that they're going to be replaced? I'm like, if they're A players, they are not worried about that at all. It's only the C players that are worried about getting replaced. And quite frankly, if we can't get them, and I say we, because we always want to support our team and try to get C's to B's and B's to A's, and then ultimately all the B's to the A's. But if we can't get them there and they don't want to get there, then it's probably good that we're recruiting so that they can get to their next position and we can get our next best person in that seat doing the right work the right way. So I know it's a big leap for a lot of you, like mentally, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to put all of our ads out, all of our positions out in ads. But I'm telling you, you have to have a recruiting strategy. You've got to be able to bring people into your funnel so that when you need them, they are there for you. So use an applicant tracking system. I don't care if it's Chirology or any other ones. There might be free ones out there. This is like $99 a month, but you just Google applicant tracking systems and see what's out there. But put your ads, at least get the job descriptions into an applicant tracking system. If you don't want them open all the time, don't do that. But at least you can flip a switch when you need them and then post the ad. This is our recruiting process. We have a recruiter. She's amazing. Her name is Chrissy. And we found her on LinkedIn. She is literally staff on demand when we need her. She's really recruiting all the time. She's constantly screening applications. So we have her basically, working all the time, but she's part-time. She's not crazy expensive. She's paid a really fair rate, but we can afford to do that. And she's, she looks at she posts the positions, she screens the applications, she conducts a phone interview, she ranks them, she decides whether or not they're going to be a candidate that can go to our clinic director or any other leader. Then our leaders, our clinic directors, or other leaders in our company will make a decision about whether or not they want to do this interview. They schedule an on-site interview for the clinics. We do a phone screen with Kat, who's our director of operations, and then we do a background check and a reference check. And then if we like this person, then they're going to get the offer. So again, take a picture of this, take a print screen, but this is a very, very efficient way to build your applicant pipeline. And again, like, I highly recommend that you just hire somebody who's a professional recruiter. I'm not talking about a recruiting agency. I despise those folks. Those people that are out there who want to charge you $1 billion to find a front desk CA, no, that's not good. There are some actually good ones in chiropractic. There's one good one that I'm thinking about. So if you're looking for a chiropractor, I really like these guys. They do a great job, called Chiro Matchmakers. But at the end of the day, these other ones that are calling you up, be like, hey, are you looking for a medical assistant? Are you looking for this? Are you no, those people are terrible. So again, a great way to manage your recruiting process is using an applicant tracking system and making sure that you have a process. Second, you need to hire for values. You want people who have skills. You need people that have the skills that you need for that role. We'll talk about how you define that in a second. But if you don't bring people on that align with your values, all you're going to have is the big T, meaning trouble, because they might be great at their job, but if they don't align with your values, they are going to be a terrorist in your organization. So how do you hire for values? It's all about asking the right interview questions. And these are 3 of my favorites. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? Again, in the spirit of pushing the limits of human potential, see how these things align, you guys. Kaizo, our name, what it means, how we interview, all of these things line up. We are in alignment. We are not quote unquote subluxated, right? We're in alignment. So that's one of our questions. Who is your favorite coach and why? When I asked this question, and some dude sitting in front of me and he's like, oh man, I love Coach Smith. We used to smoke bong hits during practice and he let us drink beer afterwards and it was great. I'm like, well, how'd your team do that year? Oh, we lost every game, but we had fun. Okay, but like we're not going to be smoking bong hits and drinking beer during your shifts here. So maybe great to hang out with, but maybe not so great for the role that we need you in. But if they say, yo, Coach Brown was amazing. Like we ran rinse sprints after practice, man. It sucked. We hated it, but like we were so conditioned. By the time we got to that championship game, we just outperformed. We just beat up that other team, and so we won the state championship. And so like that was just one of the greatest experiences that I ever experienced. I'm like, okay, this person understands the value of hard work. They're okay being pushed to their potential, and they like winning. All right, I think we might have some values alignment here. And also tell me about a time when you exhibited, insert the core value, brilliance, tenacity, passion, synergy, human-centeredness in a previous role. Guys, if you don't have your core values laid out and they're not explicit and it's not clear about what that core value means, how the hell are you going to hire the right people who align with your values? It's going to be really, really, really hard. Again, Chiropractic Entrepreneurial Framework is about creating alignment. By the way, take a picture of this. I make my hiring resources available for free. So you can get my top, they're now 35 questions. You can get that. You can get the top grading PDF that I've uploaded to this section. It's all free for you guys. Just go ahead and just take a picture of that link. Sorry, I don't have a QR code. Normally I would, but didn't get a chance to get that done. But it's free, and I'm making it available because I love Christy, and so therefore I love you guys. All right, third thing, be crystal clear about roles and performance expectations. So this is what's called an accountability chart. Every single role in our organization has 3 to 5 key deliverables. This is what they're going to deliver in this role, and it can be quantified. It can be measured, because if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And so making sure that you've got an accountability chart, that you know exactly what your expectation is of that person in that seat, is critically important. So if you don't have an accountability chart, build one as soon as you possibly can. When I interview chiropractors, and I interview all the time, like all the time. And again, my doctors don't care. My doctors are like AA players. They're phenomenal. I love my team. They're not worried about it. They're like, oh, yeah, go get us some more talent. We want more talent on our team. Go get us the best wide receiver, quarterback, whatever. Because that's how A players think, right? They want other great people on the team. So when I sit down and I interview, part of our process is, once they've made it through several hoops, because our interview process is pretty rigorous, I'll sit down with them and I will literally go through exactly what it looks like to be great in the role. So there's clinical expectations or administrative expectations, and there's sales and marketing and patient and provider education expectations. I've got a description of each one of these. I've got a very specific quantifiable target, and then I've got a deadline. And then I've got the level of importance. If they have to make a decision about one thing or another, always do A before B, B before C, right? Pretty simple. And then whether or not that task can be delegated and just followed up with by the clinic director or the associate. When I'm done with this, I get a few comments. Wow, nobody ever has done this with me before in any of my other interviews. I'm like, okay, well, it just gives you an indication of the kind of company that you'd be joining if in fact we felt like it was a good fit. And two, it's like, thank you for making it really clear as to, what my responsibilities would be. And, sometimes it's thank you and no thank you, right? Like, I just want to go and see patients and adjust people. Like, that's my job. That's what I want to do. God bless you. Good for you. That's not going to be a good fit for us, and we're not going to be a good fit for you. But if somebody's like, yeah, like I am a intrapreneur, I want to be entrepreneurial inside an organization that allows me to express the best version of myself, allows me to express my genius, and I have all the support to provide that for me. Hell yeah, let's roll. And I will also share this with you in the full spirit of transparency. No matter how well I do at explaining this and going through all the details and answering all the questions, I also know, based on feedback that I received, that it's definitely still, it's enlightening, but it's still different doing the work. And what we're doing is we're setting the game plan here. This is the playbook. And now it's about practice, right? Like literally we call it practice for a reason. And when you build your practice muscle over time, in the beginning, this is hard. You're drinking from a fire hose. You feel like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. But as you do this more and more, what you build is, again, expertise. You build mastery. You build achievement. And that means that what we've done with this person who comes into our organization is we've actually changed them as a human. They come in one way, and now 3 years later, they're a totally different human. They have so many more skills. They have so much more confidence because they're able to do the things that were set out for them at the very beginning in terms of expectations. Another great book, Traction by Gino Wickman. He says that they're in the right seat. Your people are in the right seat if they get the role. Again, you've got to be clear about expectations, that they want the role because you've been clear about expectations, and they have the capacity to do the role. Now, capacity is an interesting thing because, again, like I mentioned earlier, just now, like sometimes the capacity needs to be built, but if they align with your core values, if they're a hard worker and they're dedicated and they're loyal and they're good and they're coachable. Coachable is really important. They can build capacity over time. So again, if they've got a growth mindset, cool. When it comes to setting clear expectations, again, everything is measured. If you look at the left-hand side here, you can see different initials. These are the different people that are responsible for the key performance indicators. This is green means we've hit the goal. Red means that we haven't, but at least we're clear. We know how we're performing all the time. Each individual knows, based on the job expectations that I just reviewed, each individual knows how they're performing over time. And then if there's gaps in performance, if we're not achieving these goals, my role is not to sit there and be the taskmaster and like start coming down on people. Like that leadership style, I think went away in like 1822. Like my job as a leader, and your job, I believe, as a leader, is to support your team, to grow them, is to support your team, to help them get to their next level of genius. And when you do that, not only will you build loyalty, but you will also build your business. So sometimes you'll think like, I don't want to invest in my team because if I invest in my team, they're just going to take those skills and go somewhere else. And the literature, the business scientific literature says that's absolutely not true. That when you invest in your team, they're exponentially more likely to stay with you. So when things aren't going well, when you've got things that are quote unquote in the red, now's the time to step up as a leader and support your team, solve problems. And we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Solve these problems so that they can achieve success, so that you can achieve success, because ultimately at the end of the day, that creates a lot of joy and happiness. It's a win-win-win across the board. So how can we take an assessment of our team, like really quickly right now, like actionable item that we can take from this webinar today? Well, one way to do it is we can evaluate values versus performance in what we call a 9-box. So y-axis is values, x-axis is performance, CBA going left to right, CBA going bottom to top, and we can rank our people. Like, where do they fit? Obviously, we want AA players. BB players hopefully can be moved up into the up into the right. We've got like the C performance person, but A on values. Like, I might give that person a bit more time because, man, they're really trying. They're giving it their best. They're aligned with our values. Maybe we just need to do more training with them. The A performance and the C players, man, those are our terrorists, right? Those are the people that, like, if they're an insurance CA and they can just like collect money from any insurance company, but they're just like horrible people, right? Like horrible to work with. Those are the people that we have to sit down and have a conversation about what our core values are and how they're not being aligned with by this person. That's why you need your core values written down, because you always have performance conversations around values, not just skills, but values. And if they can't get there, well, we're going to coach them up or we're going to coach them off. And that's all there is to it. And it becomes very objective when you're doing everything you can to support your team and help them achieve a level of success. They're either going to get there or they're not with your support. And if you can't get in there and they don't want to get there themselves, you coach them off. If you coach them up, not only are they loyal, but now your business is elevated to the next level. Part 4, rocks and level 10 meetings we call our goals rocks. This is a whole Stephen Covey thing. You can look that up on the side, but we call our goals rocks and level 10 meetings. If you're not setting goals, you're not turning the invisible into the visible. Like, it's just really, really clear, because here's what we know from the neuroscience, like writing down your goals actually helps to achieve them. All of our quarterly goals, which again, we call them rocks, all of them are written down, and we actually organize all of our rocks in a technology platform called Traction Tools. I know I'm running late, but I'm just gonna go back here. On the left-hand side, you can see this is the agenda for our meeting, and I'm gonna get to that in just a second. But again, you can see our rock review is part of our goals. So again, we've got them written down. So how do you write an effective goal or rock? First, you've got to know and understand your past and or current performance. How do you know that? you've got to be a data-driven practice. You've got to look at the data tied to your performance. So you've got to understand that. You've got to identify and solve for the most important issues. We're going to talk about how to do that in just a second. And then you need to create SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound rocks for your goals. Okay, Christy told me I still have 25 minutes, so I'm not gonna panic. I'm gonna maybe slow it down just a little bit because I know I'm moving kind of fast. So this is how you set your rocks. This is how you think about setting appropriate goals. Know your performance, solve for your issues, and then create a SMART goal around it. Whenever you set a goal, you as the leader, you've got to poke the bear on this with every single member of your team. So what do I mean by poking the bear? So somebody says, well, I want to achieve, or I'm going to bring in, let's say it's a marketing person. I'm going to bring in 50 new patients a month. Okay. How are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to build a marketing strategy so that we can bring in new patients from our marketing strategy. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I think I'm going to look at some of our data to see where our new patients are currently coming from. Like, what's the ratio of doctor referrals and attorney referrals and referrals from digital marketing and our internal referrals? And I'm going to look at the data, and then I'm going to figure out like, which areas of opportunity we have to grow the most. Well, how are you going to figure out which areas of opportunity there are to grow most? Well, I'm going to do some research online to find like the latest digital marketing trends and ways to drive more referrals for attorneys, doctors, and internal referrals. Okay, now you're talking. Now there's clarity around exactly what needs to be done in order to achieve the goal of bringing in 50 new patients a month. But the leader is responsible for poking the bear. And what you're actually really doing is you're building goal-building muscle in your team. You're building skills around critical thinking. The more critical thinking there is, the smarter your people are, the more likely you are to achieve the goal, especially when it's written down and executed on. Now, how do you hold people accountable to their goals? Again, you want to do weekly level 10 meetings. So we call them level 10 because when the business researchers out there in the world ask people who work for companies on a scale from 0 to 10, how productive do you think your meetings are? Most people gave the average score was 4 out of 10. And so the goal is to have a meeting where people say, yeah, like this meeting was 10. This was an amazing meeting. So how do you build a level 10 meeting? Well, first, you have a consistent agenda. You do it on the same day, every day, at the same time. So if you're doing them Mondays at 12 noon, then you just consistently do them Mondays at 12 noon. Guess what? People who show up earlier on time, people who show up on time, they're late. So everybody should be in the meeting at 11:55 to get that meeting started at 12 noon. Here's the agenda. Same thing, same time, every single meeting. Start with good news. Great icebreaker. It could be personal, it could be professional. Start with good news, 5 minutes. Next, scorecard. You saw my scorecard. I showed it to you. All the KPIs. Anything that's red that doesn't have an issue already attached to it gets dropped down to the issues list. It's either we're on track or we're off track. No discussion here about your metrics. Next 5 minutes, people headlines. This is where, hey, I just want you to know that, Susie came in and she was just raving about us. She had never been to a chiropractor before, and like we have changed her life. So just want everybody to know it's awesome. Or Joe came in, he left early, he didn't get his rehab, he was pissed off that he had to wait. We need to drop this down to the issues list because we need to do something for Joe. He was waiting 30 minutes for his adjustment. Okay, got it. We'll drop it down to the issues list. Let's add it right now. Next is rock review. Again, this is where we review those really specific SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. That's how they need to be written based on the 3 to 5 hows that you're asking. So rock review, are you on task or are you off track or are you on track? If you're off track and you don't already have an issue tied to it, you have to drop it down to the issues list. Next is the to-do list. The to-dos are the 1 week things that need to get done from the previous week's level 10 meeting. So if we have an issue like, oh, Joe left, he didn't get to do his rehab, he was pissed off because he waited 30 minutes for his adjustment. Okay, we're going to send Joe, a crumble basket with cookies and an apology note. And we're going to do that this week. It's going to get done on Wednesday. Our front desk CA is going to do it. Cool. It's all assigned in our online platform, which I'll show you. And it just gets done. Was it done or not done? If it doesn't get done, it gets dropped down to the issues list. If it gets done, you drop it off, you check it off as a to-do. You want accountability in your organization, people. You want people to do what they're supposed to be doing. You have to have exposure. Let me say that again. You have to have exposure. Everything needs to be right in front of everybody. Like you're in a staff meeting, like, Joe, did you do that? No. How do you think that makes, Joe's not a good example. Shouldn't use Joe. Fred's the CA who's going to send the crumble basket to Joe. Fred, did you do that? No. Well, okay, Fred, let's drop it down to the issues. Let's just figure out why. Now we got to discuss why Joe can't send his crumble basket, why Fred can't send his crumble basket to Joe. Like, Fred doesn't want to be embarrassed. Fred just wants to get his crap done so that he can move on and be like, yeah, man, I did that. Cool. Let's move on. Exposure is a critically important element in driving improved performance. Are we trying to embarrass people? No. But we're trying to make sure that people need to get their crap done because that's what they're committing to doing. Next is the issues list. This is where you identify the issue, discuss the root cause, and then you solve those things. And I'll get to that a little bit later. Then you conclude and rate the meeting. Some people, they're going to give you an honest answer about the meeting. Cool. How can we improve it next time? If it's not a 10, okay, well, what would make it a 10 so that I can do better in running the meeting? Also, what can be fun is actually rotating who runs the meeting each time to give everybody else a taste of what it's like to run a meeting with a group of people and holding others accountable. Actually, when I say holding others accountable, people holding themselves accountable, but others running the meeting and watching people execute or in some situations not execute, and then what happens next. Part 5, Six Sigma. Okay, so we're moving here, people. We got 3 more parts to 5, 6, and 7 to go. So Six Sigma. This is all about process management. If you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you literally don't know what you're doing. This came from one of the leading management gurus on the planet, W. Edwards Deming. So here's my quick story. Way back in the day, 20 some years ago, maybe, 2003, we were seeing lots of patients and we were not bringing in money. So I knew, I was an idiot. I decided I was going to enroll in Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, their Small Business Development Center. I would drive back and forth from DC to Philly multiple times per week, 2 times after practice in the evenings, 1 time on Saturday. And when I was driving back and forth, I listened to the book, Jack, Straight from the Gut. I listened to this book, and Jack was talking about Six Sigma. So what is Six Sigma? So I again, when I'm in front of an audience, it's a little more engaging to do, but I like my steak medium rare. My favorite steakhouse is Ruth Chris. Yes, I love the butter. So when I order my steak medium rare and it comes out and it's well done, what do? What do you do? Send it back, right? Send it back. You order it medium rare. They bring out medium rare. Cool. Next time I go to Ruth Chris, I order it medium rare and it comes out and it's basically mooing. They just didn't cook it enough. And I'm like, I send it back, right? And I'm very respectful of the service industry. I used to wait tables. I sold ladies' shoes. I've done pretty much anything and everything. So I'm always super respectful, but I want my food the way that I want it. Christy knows that I'm a little bit bougie. So I want my food the way I want it. I'm paying for food. I want it the way that I want it. So I'll send it back. Comes back medium rare. Cool. I'm psyched. Next time I go to Ruth's and I order my steak medium rare and it comes out as sushi. Now we got problems. They should have just served me poop on a plate because I literally am never going back to that Ruth Chris ever again. So what went wrong? Now, I've talked about a lot of really important stuff today, but I promise you this is up there, people. I mean, this is up there with, growth mindset and self-awareness and making sure that you have your mission and core values, but you got to understand this principle. So what went wrong? So when I'm in a room, again, of people, they're like, the communication was bad. Okay, good. I'll give you that one. That's 1 point. Well, they didn't have their process good. Well, okay, that's obvious. That's super high level. That doesn't tell me how to solve that problem. So what in the process went wrong? Oh, well, they weren't trained well. Okay, they weren't trained well, but what specifically went wrong with that steak? They just didn't care. Right? I'm getting these very high level, non-specific answers. If we're going to fix a process issue, we must truly be able to identify the root cause. So here are the things that could go wrong. 1, the steak cooked too long. 2, the steak was cooked at the wrong temperature, either too high for well done or too low for medium rare. 3, if it was the right cooking time and the right cooking temperature, the thickness of the steak is a key variable that must be controlled for. Because if it's too thin, it's going to come out well done. If it's too thick, it's going to come out rare. So when we start to really understand the root cause of process defects, that's when we can solve them. And this is honestly about you guys flipping a switch on your brain that says, I now understand the right questions to ask and how to dig and dive deep in order to understand the root cause of defects. So what is Six Sigma? Six Sigma is a quality assurance methodology designed to control the 3 to 5 key variables in any process to guarantee the desired result. How expensive is it for Ruth Chris to cook multiple steaks that are not cooked correctly? First of all, it costs them a customer. That is years worth of revenue loss that they've just experienced. Not to mention all the people I'm going to tell, like, don't go to that Ruth Chris. They suck. They're a steakhouse. They can't cook a steak the right temperature. It has so many ripples when we have defects in our processes when we lose a customer. So think about your processes. You've got administrative processes, you've got financial processes, you've got clinical processes, you've got marketing processes. If you don't have them documented, you don't know what you're doing. And by the way, when your thought leaders who are doing those processes end up leaving your practice, now you've got this massive knowledge gap. Now what are you going to do? So you've got to write down your processes. At the end of the day, the desired result, Y, is a function of many, many, many process steps. The idea is, what are the 3 to 5 key ones that we must control in order to guarantee the desired result? I know that if I want to go cook my steak medium rare in my kitchen right here, that I got to have the right cooking temperature, got to have the right cooking time, and I've got to have the right thickness of the steak. If I do those things correctly, I am 99.99966% correct that I'm going to get that steak medium rare when I pull it out of the oven. So why is it labeled as Six Sigma? We don't really have time to talk about this, you guys. If you want to learn more about it, you can. I can geek out about this for like another hour, but at the end of the day, we're talking about process variability. And what we're looking at here is a curve, a bell curve. At 1 sigma, all of this area underneath this curve right here, all of this yellow that you can see, a lot of area under the curve, a lot of process variability. Variation in any process is evil. We want consistency, not variability. And so we're going to have more defects, and therefore we're going to get our steaks or your patient's adjustment or their patient statements or the insurance claims out incorrectly. All the way out here at 6 sigma to the right, you can't even see any process variability. There's no yellow that you can see, and therefore there's no process variability. That means your processes are literally mathematically functioning where you only have 3.4 defects per million opportunities. So here's the analogy. If you're submitting if you're submitting 1 million insurance claims in a year or in your lifetime, only 3.4 are defective if your insurance process functions at 6 sigma. If you give 1 million adjustments in your lifetime, you will only have 3.4 defective adjustments in that entire lifetime of giving 1 million adjustments. It's almost perfect, okay? And that's what we need to aspire our processes to be. So how do you do this? 1, you've got to document the 20% of the key processes that drive 80% of the practice. You then, once you have it mapped out, you've got to identify and control the 3 to 5 key variables that drive quality and customer loyalty, and use the key variable root cause framework to address any issues in your practice. And again, there's a lot more here, but my goal today is to give you a high-level overview of the chiropractic entrepreneur, and then I'll share with you other ways that you can learn more. Okay, guys, we are getting close. So part 6, KPIs, reverse engineering. So how do we, again, use these principles of 6 Sigma and reverse engineer getting to goal? So again, we talk about like our KPIs, we set goals, we have rocks, we're measuring these metrics, these KPIs every single week, every single month, every single quarter, every single year. So what are the indicators that matter most to your practice, right? What are those metrics that matter most? And so I'm going to use this as an example. I think this is actually like a really important KPI. A lot of practices, in fact, when I'm in an audience and I ask this question, show of hands, how many people actually measure the percentage of patients that doctor discharge versus self-discharge? Very few doctors measure this. I don't understand it. It's an indication of customer loyalty. It's an indication of getting the best outcomes for the patient. It's an indication of most likely moving people to maintenance care when they need it or want it. All those things are really, really important. Again, in the spirit of customer retention, and most practices don't measure it. I don't understand, but that's for another day. We can dive into that another time. So this is a really key performance indicator. Doctor discharges, what does that mean? So we're going to drive better clinical outcomes. That's going to lead to a doctor discharge. If patients are improving over time, they're more likely to stick with your care. How do we drive better outcomes? Well, first of all, we've got to be able to measure it. We've got to be able to know, and we have to be able to share it with the patient. That's why we do re-exams. That's why we're asking questions about subjective improvement. That's why we're making sure that we're giving them outcome assessment tools so we can show them their progress. That's why we can use technology to show their movement patterns. We can use markerless technology to evaluate whether or not they're moving correctly or not, give them a score on their overall movement. Lots of different ways to measure their clinical outcomes. And then also practicing evidence-based practice interventions, like giving them an evidence-based report of findings, educating them on why you're doing the treatment plan that you're doing. There's evidence around there, excuse me, there's evidence out there around why you're recommending a certain number of visits during a certain number of weeks and for how many weeks. There's good evidence around that. Let's use that evidence to drive better outcomes so that patients stick with their care and ultimately doctor discharge. So again, self-discharges, they're key drivers of that too. You want to make sure that you drive compliance to the best of your ability. So how do you drive a more compliant patient so you have more doctor versus self-discharges? So again, a more compliant patient really, again, is giving that report of findings and that patient education, as well as motivating that patient. Like they're inspired, they're self-motivated, but you're also helping to motivate them because they're getting improvements in their care plan. And then lastly, ways to gamify the patient experience. Like that's what we did in our practice. We built a mobile app. We gamified the patient experience. We built in a rewards program inside of the app. It drove anywhere between 36 and 70%, excuse me, I'm like running out of breath, more adherence to a care plan than those patients who did not download the app. This is a 4,000 patient study. Like we easily know that gamification works, and there are a multitude of studies out there that shows that gamification and technology can drive more compliance in a patient. So we want better compliance, better adherence to care plans. That's going to lead to more doctor versus self-discharges. Okay, part 7. We're rounding home, guys. How do we solve the problems? How do we do this IDS, right? Like this: identify, discuss, and solve our issues. And I call this operational problem solving. So let's give some examples here. Let's just say that we've got these problems in our practices. We've got organized chaos. We've got low new patients. We've got low revenue. We've got paperwork burden. We've got no regular staff meetings. How do we solve these issues so that we can move the practice to the next level? Well, the next step is to make sure that you list or group the similar issues together. So organized chaos and no regular meetings, those two things are definitively linked. There's a root cause there that is very similar. If you don't have a lot of new patients, you're probably not driving a lot of revenue, people, or not as much as you could. Now look, if you've got a full schedule of maintenance patients, yes, 100%, you've got, as long as you're getting paid, you've got great revenue, right? You don't need a lot of new patients because your schedule is full with the wellness practice. God bless you, love you. Model practice, good for you. You're doing great work in the world. However, if that's not your model and you are looking for more new patients, and I think a lot of chiropractors are, because that's all I see on my feeds in Instagram and Facebook, like get more new patients from this agency, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of chiropractors that are dealing with this issue. It also ties back to low revenue. And then of course, paperwork burdens is a separate issue. So I group these by different colors. So then we group these things together, and then we have to prioritize, like, what's the most important thing that we're going to tackle, and what are the root causes behind this? Now, again, I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick low new patients. What are these key drivers or root causes? Well, we don't have a marketing strategy. We're not differentiated because we haven't defined our brand. There's no internal referral strategy. There's no compensation strategy to drive new patients. Like for the team, is there a bonus strategy? Some states allow it, some states don't, but most states do as long as the compensation is reasonable. No money for ad spend because we have low revenue. How do we solve these problems? These are all issues. So now we're going to prioritize and say, okay, we're going to start with marketing strategy. This is what we need to do first. We need to think strategically first, tactically second. So here's what's going to happen. And there are typically more slides that I go through when I do this, but you're going to get the gist because I asked the 5 hows. So here's how you build a SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. So I will build our practice's marketing strategy by February 15th by doing the following. Telling the team we're going to build a marketing strategy together by setting up a meeting on January 21st. We'll buy everyone lunch and roll out their new patient bonus structure for feedback. I will research existing online marketing strategy blogs for chiropractic practices, and we'll reach out to 2 friends who have successful marketing strategies as research for the meeting on January 20th. I will prepare a summary of my research at the meeting on January 21st. At the meeting, we will have the following agenda: good news, question storming session. Don't have time to define that, guys, today. I'm sorry, but again, I will share some of these ideas. I'll teach you how to learn more about this at the end of this webinar. Aggregate ideas into easy and impactful. There's a matrix that we use to make decisions. Staff will choose how they'll participate and create SMART goals, discuss staff bonus structure, conclude meeting, and then set up regular staff meetings. See how I did that? Now I've tackled 2 things. I've tackled the first important step of our low new patients, touching on low revenue, and now we're going to have regular staff meetings so we can keep people accountable by doing the same meeting, same time, same day, same agenda. Now, there's lots of specificity here, guys. There has to be clarity. Who's doing it? When is it going to get done by? What's going to get done? All of those things are critically important in building out the appropriate IDS, identify, discuss, solve for operational problem solving. Okay, so time for review. Chiropractic entrepreneur, you have to have a leadership growth mindset. I showed you some ways. I'm going to tell you a little bit in just a few minutes how to learn more about this. Mission and values, you've got to have it. You've got to be really clear about why you exist, who you are, what you believe, and how you behave. You've got to put the right people in the right seat doing the right work in the right way at the right time. You've got to hire for values, critically important. You've got to build out your goals, make sure they're written, ask the 5 hows, and do level 10 meetings to ensure that everybody is holding themselves accountable. 6 Sigma is a quality assurance methodology to help you decrease defects and improve customer loyalty. You've got to have KPIs so that people know where they stand in terms of their goals, and then do the operational problem solving and solve your issues once and for all. Woo! I got 2 minutes left, people. So here we go. This was high level. So what I want to share with you is that we have built out our first live event. It's called Your Business Adjustment Summit. You can register now. There are only 19 early bird tickets left. You've got 3 days plus, Tiny. You got 3 days left to register. But at that event, here's who's going to be speaking. Myself. This is where we're going to do a deep dive on everything that I've talked about today. What you learned in 1 hour is going to grow exponentially at this event. We're bringing in Kevin Christie. Kevin has one of the largest Facebook groups on modern chiropractic marketing on the planet. He is a leader in marketing, ethical new patient acquisition. He is the best in the business. He's one of our speakers. Joey Coleman. If you don't know who Joey Coleman is, he's just the world's leading expert on customer retention. He wrote the best-selling book, Never Lose a Customer Again. We want to help you bring in new patients, but we need to make you keep those new patients so they get the best outcomes possible and you get the best income possible by creating more value. Our own, very own, wonderful woman, Christy Cook-Hudson, she's going to be speaking about the use of technology and documentation and coding compliance to keep the money that you earn. And she's going to be sharing some really new strategies on revenue enhancement. And Mr. Brad Koss, who is the CEO of Infinity, it's a data and analytics company. He's going to teach you how to quickly identify with one click, how to identify where your claims are in the payment process. He's going to show you how you get insight into where your money is in one click. And lastly, all of these speakers are going to be sharing new ways to create additional new streams of revenue in your practice. So Joey, again, he's spoken in like the world's best stages. He consults for Google and Microsoft, NASA. He is one of the most amazing speakers you will ever hear in your life. The rest of us are pretty good, but Joey is amazing. And so we're really excited for him to be our keynote. The journey is, man, you're going to come, you're going to attend the event. We're going to give you a workbook that you're going to work through in 30 days. And then we're going to do a readjustment, because this is a business adjustment seminar. You're going to come back for your re-exam, and we're going to do another adjustment where speakers will be on that phone call, where you're going to be able to bounce ideas off of them, ask more questions so that we can help you move forward from there. We are limiting attendance, you guys. We don't want this to be like the largest thing in chiropractic. We're not interested in that. What we're interested in is people who are inspired and highly motivated to become chiropractic entrepreneurs. You've hit the ceiling. You don't know how to get through. You want to level up. You've got a big leap issue in your practice, and we are going to help you get through it. I believe so much so that we are offering a money-back guarantee. If you don't think you get exponential value and you didn't get what you received and the money that you spent, I will give you your money back. That's how confident I am that we are going to crush it for you and with you at this event. This is our pricing. $279 is our regular ticket. $479 means you have a VIP dinner with all the speakers where you get intimate time to be able to ask questions, learn more. This is going to be after the event. You'll have questions about your practice. This is that time, you run up to a speaker and they got 2 minutes to talk to you. Well, you're going to have 2 hours to talk to all of our speakers. We've only got 19 tickets left. We're going to do a VIP dinner, hang out, have a great time, and mastermind all the concepts that we've learned. Again, I'm giving you a money-back guarantee. And here's the QR code if you want to register. So I'm going to leave that up for you guys. I am a minute late, but I am going to leave this up in case you guys want to register. Again, if you want to level up, I promise you, we will help you do that. So, Christy, I know my time is up. And tell me what else I need to do.
You're good. And I'm super impressed that you got through all the slides, although I had all the faith in the world that you would get it done.
Well, thank you.
So why don't you tell them, because you're traveling a lot the next couple of weeks leading up to your independent event, but what cities are you going to be in?
So I'm going to be in Pinehurst, North Carolina. I'm going to be there this weekend. So I'm speaking with Brad Cost. We're gonna talk all things technology and revenue creation. Christy, are you going to be in North Carolina? It's just Heather, right?
It's just Heather. I won't see you again until San Antonio.
Oh man, that's a bummer. So I am doing. I'm going to be in Pinehurst, North Carolina this weekend, and then in 2 weekends after that, I am going to be in St. Augustine, Florida, at the FCA event. A few weeks after that, I'm going to be in San Antonio with you. A few weeks after that, I'm going to be in Richmond, Virginia for the UVCA event. And after that, I'm going to be in, where am I going to be?
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
I'm going to be in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Yes, thank you. I'm going to be in Michigan. So very excited for these events. Always great crowds. Always great to see my very good friends. And yeah, very, very excited.
I'm excited too. And just check it out. You can also go to the ChiroHealthUSA website and look at upcoming events where you can see where we are sponsoring Dr. J. Greenstein to speak at a city near you all this year. Just a reminder, again, we're going to every other week on webinars. Our next one is with Dr. Tom Nasila, and we're going to be talking about how to sell your practice. So I know some of you are about to graduate from chiropractic college. Some of you have been in practice for a couple of decades, and then the rest of y'all fall somewhere in between. But it is never too early to start thinking about your exit strategy, right? So we're setting goals and what you want to do. That's what Dr. J talked about today. So I think it's always a good idea to start thinking about what is it that you're wanting and the different ways you can sell your practice and how to maximize that value. So we're really excited to have him here. 2 weeks after that, our first weekend in April, we're going to have Suck It Up, You're in Sales, and That's Okay with Aaron Reynolds.
Oh, that's great.
That's so exciting. I'm sure many of you have. He's been on the webinar series before. He's been doing a lot of podcast interviews in the last couple of months. But he's really just talking about driving revenue in your practice. And are you training your team adequately to be able to do that? So we're super excited about that. We have Dr. Nona David, talking about burnout, Dr. Bill Esteb on digital marketing essentials. And then I love this because our dear friend, Dr. Eric DiMartino from Michigan, is getting the 4 rights right. And it's about having the right people in the right seat. And it's going into a very detailed about your hiring process and how to cultivate great talent for your practice. And then we're following that with Dr. Mark Santa on how to make your practice culture count, because you want to create a great environment that your employees want to stay at and thrive at. And so you're going to start to see these ongoing themes throughout the year. And again, remember to email me, Christy@ChiroHealthUSA.com. Tell me who you want to hear from and what you'd like to hear about. And we're going to wrap that up for now. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys. Thank you.